What's going down, everyone? Guess what? There's a new patch. 19.10.1. As we enter into the September updates as we had in the 19.9 saga, now we're entering a whole new thing of week 1 coming to an end and beginning at the same time for AMD in this month of very spooky updates. Who knows what we might get? I think it might be a thriller to see what we can do, and I had a really great fan community question, and I think that it was something that was a great idea, so I'm going to showcase that in this patch. As you can see, Gus was the one that gave us this great idea. Why not go back to the standard and compare those to what's up to date? Now, I didn't do the 19.93, I had a lot of other projects, but we're going to do it in today's update as I've ran 3 tests. One already in the background for what we've got in our scores, and I'll pull those right up real fast. I'm gonna go ahead and pin that. I feel like he deserves that. Great job. With a question when it comes down to the simple situations of when I do my benchmarks on 3D Mark, which I love to do, but I keep those towards the tail end because I know that a lot of people like to have the news and for as far as what the patch is coming in. So if you are here for the news, we will get into that, and I'll pull up the AMD patch notes and we'll go down the list, which is pertaining to a lot of the new entry of the family that they've introduced from the 5500 series. But we'll get into that in a split second. One of the things that I wanted to pull up was all the highlighted scores that we have right here. These are consistently drawn to what is my Intel, as well as every single test on the board that we will compare back to back with the new update. Yes, we're going to do the 19.9.3 versus the 19.10.1, which is this month's first entry of their driver issues, and then we're going to see from that, from AMD standard, is just the AMD standard, which should be 19.5.2. We're going to compare all 3 to see the progress of what they've come to giving us for a card. For me as an owner of a Radeon 7, I feel like that's a great way to kind of size up my value of what I've earned throughout the days. So as we run back in time and join Barry Allen as we have the lightning fast download of the 19.52, which seems to be now, according to the patch notes that I just took a peek at for the newer generation, it seems like the 19.92 might be the new standard. We're going to take a peek at that in just a split second, but let's go ahead and get this installed and do some tests. As you can see, as I'm installing this underneath, this is what I'm talking about. Now they have a recommended, it's not a standard, which is interesting, but that's the 19.92. So if you've been having issues with the 19.93, which seems to have completely disappeared off the board, you might want to maybe just switch back to the 19.92, but I've heard other people had some issues too. But let's go ahead and accept this and move on, and we'll get to the patch notes. And as you can see, I have the patch notes pulled up right here as it's doing its install. It's almost about done, give or take some situational points. Let me go ahead and zoom in a little bit so everyone can get a better view of what's going down. As we have the 19.10.1 release notes. Oh, hold on, it's already done. Damn, that was really fast. That old school driver is not that bad at all for install. So let's go ahead and do the reset. And it's like we never even left. Back to that 1952 genre. As is tradition, we are sticking with the base clock in order to go against itself yet again, as was tested in the 19.93, which was installed, and as we're going to test the 19.10.1 very end. But we do have patch notes, so let me go ahead and get the 3D Mark running those bench tests as we get to our patch notes. What? Oh no, hilarity aside, I just got the glasses for a dramatic effect. But on a serious note though, if you look at this score, number 6, this is the direct comparison of our 19.9.3, which is laughter compared to what the 19.52 does. Coming in hot off the fresh, it dominates like by a good lead of about like almost like 125, give or take. So that's pretty good if you're sizing up the yesterday versus today. Yesterday still got it. You know, still got that groove. But let's go ahead and get back to the patch notes as I run some tests, and we'll compare those all in just a split second. One thing I will point out before we go directly to the patch notes is I ran the test back to back to see if there was an inconsistency. And there was a huge inconsistency, but still it does beat the other tests by a long shot. Okay everyone, let's sink our teeth into the news, as I have a whole bunch of fun stuff in the underlays of what's going down, and I'll be comparing all the tests in the very end. Seems like I have a nice overlay direction that I can go towards, as I get my roundabout portion of just running the Firestrike Extremes through all that other fun stuff. But as we get into the fixed issues of what they have, Borderlands 3 may be experiencing an application crash or hang up when running the DirectX 12 API. For as far as the Borderlands experience and the lighting and the corruption when running the DirectX 12, yet again with the API. Display artifacts may be experiencing from the 75Hz display configuration on the RX 5700, which seems to be an issue that they have with directly just that series of card. And a joyful day in the AMD world is the weird launch of the 5500 series, which definitely does seem promising and powerful as they kind of edge towards having better I guess stabilization as they can kind of come into play, as the mobile is right there, and they will have a series, which means the XT will more than likely be following as their more extreme version, which should be kind of nice from their own direct factories, which is really cool because if you looked at the 5700 XT, it is still renowned as built to be one of the better ones on the market that you can kind of get away with for as far as stuff. Now, as far as like situational point of the FreeSync and we have the HDR, the capacity of the display may fail in the HDR when enabled. HDR is in Windows and the OS in the 5700 graphics. Now, as you can see, I accidentally probably just need to move this over just a little bit so we can see everything perfectly. Misaligned that for another patch that I was doing earlier. But as we're going down in the situation of the FreeSync may be an intermittable point where we are experiencing stuff with that 5700, the display may intermittently flash back on the Radeon FreeSync and is enabled when in the idle on the desktop. Now that one just seems like it's across the board, doesn't seem specifically to be just directly for as far as what we have on just a specific card. It seems like it's a broadband. But known issues is the 5700s, and it looks like I need to adjust this just a little bit because I like this like font setting. It looks really nice. Is the 5700 series may graphically produce and experience display loss when resuming from a sleeper hibernation when multiple displays are connected. So if you have multiple displays like I do, and you tend to put it in hibernation, I turn off my computer just because I'd much rather just not use the electricity. But besides that portion of me trying to leave I guess a decent carbon stamp and try to do my part, that's right, kept complaining. But anyways, but as you can see, the situation has on the relive and the HDR is an unstable during the game in the relive. I've always mentioned don't use relive. I mean, AMD, if you want to give me some beta stuff that works, I'll be happy to test it out for you, no problem. But I'm an OBS diehard fan. I met the creator and I get the program really well. It makes sense to me. But besides that portion of not having to deal with too much directly on the upsettable point of the loops and where we are going, as you can see, as far as the Call of Duty Black Ops makes me experiencing some shudders when utilizing the system configuration. OBS, which makes the list is just as well as I make the humor in that situational point, may be experiencing frame drops or shuddering when using the AMF encoding on some of the system configurations. The HDMI overscans and underscans options may be missing on the Radeon settings on the Radeon 7 system configurations when prime displays are set to 60. So remember, 59.9 is probably you're going to be running around 59.7 or 59 FPS, probably going to be the best display point. Sometimes depends. The card's great, but it's not insanely like an RTX 2080 Ti. I mean, that card's like a Lamborghini versus a Dodge Viper. They're both great cars, but just, you know, different formats. But the portion that I'm getting at, besides getting towards my luster of like cars, is the situation that we have that might be causing shuddering and the resync is enabled at the 240 Hz, which I already know is going to be on the RX 5700 because it's always made that list. The AMD Radeon 7 may experience elevated memory clocks on idle, yet again, another thing that they have not gone control of. So as far as the important situations, as far as the Adrenalin software and the Vega graphics, you can really quickly click right here for as far as what they were going down in the situation, as well as this is the chronological point where you can get the patch notes direct information down below, as well as downloading this right now for your 64-bit system in Windows 10 and or 7. So with that being said, and we have pretty much cleared our patch note, it's darn time to go to the testing of this portion of the segment. Okay, and we're getting the whole Fire Strike Ultra loaded up on this situation. As you can see, I do have everything as far as gadgetry installed on side of the utilization. We'll be showcasing that a lot more in the run that we'll be getting for the 19.10.1, which I'll showcase a little bit more in the direct portions of where it tends to kind of do its thing. This is still, I'm testing within the 19.5.2 old school standard, seems like, which seems like the adoptable standard now for, especially with the families that they've introduced, and that's probably why they didn't want to go back too far, was because of the 5500's introduction in the series, as well as the 5700 series. Now we're getting into the point of Navi technology. Maybe there's just a turning point where the architecture, they're just like, you know, we just can't. It's just, it doesn't make sense anymore for us to kind of do those kind of situation. But let's go ahead and get our scores and compare some really cool stuff. As you can see, we pretty much rounded out of this test at a 6530. As you can see, I have what is highlighted right there is the Fire Strike through Extreme to Ultra, and those are highlighting the 19.5.2 update, which are not bad scores if you compare them to what we have down below. Across the board, you can see in Fire Strikes, besides the situation of the Fire Strike down below, which is your 1080p run, it seems like it utilizes the DirectX 11 really well in 4K as you kind of like run towards those more extreme moments. Now let's go ahead and size up our time spice. We're going to go ahead and test the time spy extreme and see exactly what ends up happening as we get down to some fun gameplay. One thing I did want to kind of point out, though, that you would be sacrificing, even if you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, this freaking update slaughters like the old school stuff versus new school stuff, but you are giving out the imaging sharpening, like there's like so many other cool bells and whistles that they've added on to the physical portion of the card throughout the era of updates from the 5 saga all the way up to the 10, which is about 5 months worth of updates, give or take, if you judge those for every single 19-point variation is a month that they're talking about, from 9 to 5 we've gotten ourselves into. And I think 4 was the introduction, but the 5 was the standard, where like the Radeon 7 and the introductionable point, I think it was like 4.42 or something like that when they first released it, because I was on a waiting list until I got my Radeon 7. But we can kind of showcase a little bit more at the very end of the score. As you can see, the time spy extreme came in at 38.36 versus what we have down below, where yes, the time spy extreme in 4K seems to gain an edge a little bit with the newer patches, which is great, since that means DirectX 12 is moving in its direction that it should. But you can also see the normal like time spy gets slaughtered like at 1080p. You can see that these are the two scores that I ran directly after installing the 19.52 back. So we have our scores. We have 19.93. We have 19.52. Let us install the new software and see what ends up happening. So if you're trying to find the update, it's really easy. Just go ahead and click check. It's going to go ahead and say no. Do you want the recommended, which used to be this, but now you have the optional, which we're going to go for. Since we've already selectively went towards the 19.93, which I had installed, if you want to go back to that, you can, but there is a new optional that is being ready to go into gameplay. So we're going to go ahead and go into custom. For me, I want to have a clean install of this just so it builds on a nice foundation. So let's go ahead and begin, and we will come back after it's been installed directly, and we'll test some cool stuff together. So as we can go ahead and hit our clean install and everything's gonna go ahead and do its situation, here's a really good fun have you. Really? What is the biggest lie in the entire universe? I have read and agreed to the terms and conditions. Let's be real here. They've actually been trying to fix that shit for years in like lawmaking, because like most companies just have this huge list that just goes on for days, and they actually have said that the majority of people, like almost 100% of that people, maybe there's a 99.9% because the people actually have the legality like reading it, but yeah, apparently like some of these things take days and days because they're that decadent with clauses. But let's go ahead and see what the test looks like. And as we come down to the mid portion of the actual physical update, And I have my props. I know, I like them. They're gunner glasses. They're really great for doing like longevity of projects. I would like to keep my eyesight for as long as I possibly can, and it's really good right now, so I don't want to lose that. But what I want to ask the community before we get into testing in a lot of fun situation is, you can see that my network is live, and I finally fixed a lot of update issues that AMD usually runs into when you do a clean install. If you're a streamer and you have a clean install issue, drop me a comment. I can try to help you. It's a frustrating situation. As you can see, the screen cuts out in and out. It just, shit happens. It just sucks. But the point being, as we're gonna see these like actual scores and points, is that what I want to go ahead and say is that if you are rocking a GPU and you're having an issue with this update or other updates, act up for the AMD, drop a comment down below. I would like to know like what you are thinking, or if you have a great suggestion which led me down to the portion of testing all these updates all together. I would like to hear that. Drop a comment. Mac like loves to hear from the tech community and what people are looking towards. And as we go ahead and dive back in, I have some fun AMD news. And as you can see, with a clean install, you're going to have to go ahead and add all the other overlays, which you can get really easily with Alt-R. It's a really great thing. It's like activation, Alt, Radeon. It's cool. But yeah, you can get here and get all your overlays like this. And you can see I have the menu completely pulled up directly here, and we're about to dive directly into the Time Spy. And one of the cool things that I mentioned before, the AMD news, is a lot of the talk about where Zen 4 and the profitable project of what's going past that. A lot of people are really confused because it's like the Zen Plus in between, like the genre had kind of screwed up the, I guess, the tiering point, and that's why AMD made their promise to just go, okay, we're just gonna go Zen this, Zen that, Zen this. It just no more pluses, and I can appreciate that, because now we're gonna be at Ryzen 5000-ish, and people are gonna be like, wait, what the hell supports what? Is there an AM4 socket that works now? I mean, you look like the dude from, like, I guess, I don't know if anyone's gonna remember this at all, but Monkey Island, the Curse of Monkey Island. I like paused and I was like, wait a minute, I don't know if anyone knows of this game, like the old school one, where you had like, I think his name was Larry or Gary or something like that. He was just a salesman that kept going like this. So you're gonna have to keep doing that with a suit that somehow camouflages and goes ups and down. It's really tight. But as you can see that the gameplay is under test, that we are gonna be getting into a lot more series. And so you already have the boost clocks finally hitting where we want, doing like the consistencies that we want, that a lot of creators kind of like poked out to the point of telling us where stuff was going and how stuff was hitting down. Now you have other like enterprisable points where, wow, okay, we can notice that the overlay is like having issues as it flickers in and out. That's not normal, but unless it's like spooky October update, I don't know. But the point being is that you have the situational point of where we're pushing forward for as far as the industry trying to get every little ounce out of these cards that they can while pushing and driving the network. And you can see that they hold it down in CPUs really well. I'm rocking a 2950X and also having a Radeon 7. I bought really well into the AMD technology because I trusted that it was going to kind of like expand from there, and like that investment would be my luckily like retail buy in the future, or you know, maybe a unboxing buy that like they give me as a social creator to do a review on or whatnot, or whatever needs to be done for the unboxing situation. I mean, that'd be fun. I don't know, if a company ever reached out to me, I'd be like more than happy, provided I like the product and I can support behind it, like AMD, NVIDIA, Intel, and so many other tech company points I've utilized. Like, I just like them, but I'm not here selling that. The point that I'm selling down to the point of what the information comes down to it is that we have now Mulan, and that situation where they're pushing forward into the testing points of like, well, hell, you know, if we come down to this gameplay and this situation that we can kind of like actually see where we can build a catch that's a level 3 at 32, no more latency, the Infinity Fabric now kind of like folds in its own situation on top. It's like its own like universe in this pocket point of just condensed. Move forward, let's go to freaking some DDR5 maybe? Yes? Yeah. well, things are kind of looking maybe possibly towards the situational point and stepping towards for that as we see the PCIe 4 lane. But the majority of the catch inside the CPU is what I'm more excited about, because that's going to be something that's going to probably be the tail end of the Zen series, as they kind of like have as in like Ryzen. So like as we kind of have our gameplay stories here, and you can kind of see, let's go ahead and compare it. So dime for dime, dollar for dollar, bit for bit. I'd like to point out in this situation, I was going to let the overlay and then just go back to scoring, but I thought this would be an interesting situation. As you can see, that the Radeon overlay has gotten worse through me doing 3D benchmarks. Now, this could be a lot of times that, unfortunately, that 3D benchmarks isn't always on the curb over AMD. It'd be kind of nice to see both of those companies be like, hey, buddy, you got an update coming. Like, oh, cool, we'll add it to the roster list so it updates right around the same time. Just like, you know, a game would come to a graphics card and they would release an update in that situation. So, but I thought I'd point that out. It might fix itself here. I'm gonna kind of, nope, it got worse. Oh yeah, it's still the same thing. It kind of moves, but it just looks really cool, like artifacting. But that could be a bad thing. That means this update could be very not friendly with the Radeon overlay. I guess I'm starting to have to test that too. But let's go ahead and go through all the tests and see what the ending scores are here, since we didn't have anything. If I find any hilarity in between then and there, I'll pop back in. Figured I'd pop back in and we'll figure out what happens. Oh yes, great. The graphics driver is not approved. Who would have thought? I've only done this a few times and I've seen 3D Mark not catch up to this. But when I run it a few days from now, I'm sure they'll catch up and they'll see what's going down. I'm sure they have to run their own tests and situational points to adapt to it. But as I get down to gameplay and hilarity, let's go ahead and see what we have over here for scores. As you can see, I'm not doing too bad right there for as far as meaning a nice situation with non-overclocked and fun stuff like that. So I figured I would point this one out. This is kind of the cream of the crop of the best of technology that I have paired together, which is 2950X and the basic lovely RTX 2080 Ti, which is a very sexy beast when it comes down to GPUs. But the highest I can get it just at stock is about 24154. So not too bad. That's what I'm encoding this video on right now. But the portion of what it is inside of my Intel, when you size this up to it, it's not too bad when you look everything over. You can see the different states of the Firestrike. So Firestrike here in its very first phase, which was 19.93, which they've pulled from the roster. Unless you go through my patch notes, you can totally hit up another video or just type in 19.93 on their website and it'll probably pop up. But they've taken it off the roster for as far as the selectable, easeable point, situational points. So you can see right there, that's what that is rocking. So let's go ahead and compare that to the 5.2. You can easily see why keeping up to date on your drivers are very important, because there's a huge boost in the situation where you have this. But check this out. The solid score that comes 60%, not, I wish, but 60 points, yes, above where it used to be, is the new driver. So they're doing well with choosing a recommended, and basically it's going to be our new standard. As we kind of see in the situation, they're probably just trying to wait and see if everyone has an adoption point. So if you do have like actual issues, drop a comment down below. I'd love to hear it. I'm sure AMD would love to hear it in that situation. You can always hit them up and they're ready to their other outlets, and they're more than happy to get back to you at those situations. But let's go ahead and see all the scores tit for tat. I'm going to go ahead and run some score tests and we'll see what happens in the end. Okay, it's still broken. I don't know if I want to point this one out, but if you look right over there, you will see what I'm seeing, where this thing is just ridiculous. But as we've gotten down to the gameplay of what I was getting at with the whole Zen talk, is if they can incorporate that cache, the latency on gaming would be insane, especially if they can continue to push the clock speeds of what Ryzen technology has gotten to and push into a new frontier past that. Like, it's going to be very interesting now that, like, they're in development of new technology. But who knows? The Ryzen Beyond tech is really cool, and I'm probably curious like what a lot of other people would want. Do we want like OpenCL back inside of an actual CPU? I think so, personally myself. That's so much easier as a person to operate than having to get into a situation of like, I'm sorry, I can't focus with that thing blinking like right there. It's funny, it's so broken. I'm sure this will be talked about on my card in like the next update. But as we get into portions of technology and where we can go forward and where the understandings of how AMD will try to top themselves. I think it'll be trying to them utilize the Goku technique. Continue to shatter through new plateaus and look for new people and adversaries to challenge them in order to put new standards on the table. And I say that that's pretty cool, because it pushes the other industry people to train and put harder. You know, that's the whole point, is we shouldn't be looking at this as a competition for cash cowing. This should be a competition for how far can we push the next piece of technology. As one person looked up to the sky and said, no, I'm not going to be held down by gravity. We got to use the same technology. And that same technology is going to help us push us into a newer industry. It doesn't always have to be conquered in order for us to be shared into commercial technology. It should just be let us go ahead and share the technology that we grow together to push the industry forward. I mean, come on. We should be in the Jetsons time by now, right? Well, we really are, though. If you look at the magical point, we're just not high up into there, because I guess we didn't destroy the world as fast as they thought we were in that depiction, because that's what I thought when I was watching the Jetsons. But I'm getting a whole other grown up darker side of the situation as we see the computer completely fall apart right there. Oh, poor little feller. But hey, that's the end of the tech news. Let's go ahead and line up the last portions of the score, shall we? As you can see here, that it showcases in the 19.93, where we first started this situation while testing. You can see that it drops in the 4K portion of the extreme testing of Time Spy. So you can see that as we go to the very top of the current portion, well, where would we go from here? And it drops down even further from that situational point. So it seemed like the 19.93 was the sweet spot of what they basically pushed the card and kind of gotten some really cool speeds out of it, versus where you had the 19.93, which, well, 19.93, which was the original we tested against, 19.5.2, which is the one on the bottom, which is 3 points lower than the current score, what we got. So maybe they've tuned it to old school standards and trying to push that 4K out of it really smooth and just up to date standards with what they have and their sharpening and all that stuff. But that's pretty much going to go ahead and get us down to the very final scores. Then have you a good situational point, as we showcase right here, which is the 19.93, which coming in around 64.97, not too bad of a score, is left in the dust by the original standard. Not bad, right? But it gets better. Ding, 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 ding. 9 points higher than the original standard. So, hell, they're doing good. I think for a situation, for as far as they're balancing it out, seems like they probably went ahead and did some DirectX 11 fine-tuning for as far as 4K, as 4K and 2K become more of the standard, is the way people are adapting into the actual network. And we are hitting some broadband strengths of a whole bunch of cool stuff is hitting the market. But that's pretty much where we're going to leave it. I'm going to run one quick situational point of an OC, and let's see where we get. As you can see, we just have a stock. Let's just go ahead and do our auto. That's personally what I like to do in this situation, just because I'm trying to size up what they're doing versus what the original was back in the day. Because I do have mine where they were in swap cases, but they were doing pretty good for as far as the scoring of about 7 days ago when we were kind of getting some really cool stuff. So let's go ahead and hit apply. Should be fine. It seems like it's taking it. Let's go ahead and get some test scores. And there is our nice GPU clock speeds, the maximum minimums that we're going to be rocking. You can see that this is a nice score, but it's not the auto overclock. This is my overclock. Now let's see how far my overclock was from theirs, shall we? So you can see that there's 3 scores lined up directly right over there, having our base having a auto overclock, not the under or the over, but just the auto one where it just takes over itself, and then me stepping in and doing my other overclock. So not too shabby, I'd like to think. And you can kind of see that 19.93 definitely does have its showcase points if you can kind of push stuff to this with my overclock. Now I didn't try too hard to kind of balance it, but if you can look at this week's overclock, and this would still be what I'm utilizing for my divisionable point of the 19.93 right there with the standards. You can see it doesn't fall too short from where it is, so I could probably squeeze out the whole point and get to that, but that'd take too long, and I know I can kind of do that here and there. It's a good update. I think that most people should feel comfortable installing that, which brings me to the conclusion. If you're new to the network and you've been training this long with us for about 30 minutes, which is the situational point of tech news down to the situational point of moving forward with testing and going post and pre's of what the market is trying to offer us, is saying that these are increasements from their labs. Well, let's test these out at the situation, and that's what I'm about for as far as Max news and the NVIDIA and AMD, and when Intel gets a graphics card, I'll probably get one to start doing their patch notes, but that's just my network, and if you dig that, you can always subscribe. And who knows, maybe I'll train to be the One Punch Man with hair, but who knows. You guys and gals have a very fun day, and all subscription humor aside, thank you very much for spending this much time with my network and my channel, and I'll see you guys and gals in the near future. And don't forget to leave a comment. Drop a comment down below. I would love to hear even just what GPU, what CPU you are using. What's my community up to in tech? Like, I'd like to know. You know, Intel versus AMD or whatever. I want to hear what tech you got. Anyways, you have a nice day and stay classy, everyone. And I'll see you in the near future. Your boy, Mac, signing off.